Rule 33, unsportsmanlike conduct. Very generally, what you need to know about unsportsmanlike conduct: if you're acting like a jerk, that's unsportsmanlike conduct. And anything that falls under acting like a jerk is considered unsportsmanlike conduct. More specifically, there's an entire list under Rule 33 of things that the Rules Committee thought of that they wanted to put in there specifically. So go ahead and read that list, but I'll just tell you straight up, anything that falls under acting like a jerk, you're risking a penalty or a yellow card for. So we'll go over a couple of things that happen often, and then I'll explain to you the yellow card, red card protocol. So, like I just said, don't act like a jerk, you should be fine. Excessive appealing. Remember, if you go to the video on appealing, you're allowed to hold your mallet up for a second or two, maybe an initial reaction, and that's about it. Anything beyond that, you're risking a penalty or a yellow card or an offset. So excessive appealing. If you're yelling excessively, whether it's at your players or at other players, that's unsportsmanlike. Don't do it. All we really want to hear is tail open, back it, leave it, go up for the shot, that sort of thing. If you are abusive to your players, verbally abusive, that's unsportsmanlike. You're risking a yellow card. I've had players tell me, I can say whatever I want to my players. No, you can't. So remember that. It's in the rule. Okay, bad language. Don't cuss. What we're most concerned about is cussing in front of the crowd or people that are watching. Remember, there's people's spouses and children and that sort of thing there. So if you're not going to do it in church on Sunday, don't do it on the polo field, more or less. At least don't do it in front of the crowd so they can hear you. Okay, that's what our concern is. Talking to the umpire, and this is probably the biggest issue that we have. When can you and when can you not talk to the umpire? Okay, so, and even some umpires are confused on this, so I'm more than happy to clear this up. The captain is the only one on the team that can really have any kind of conversation with the umpire, and the captain is limited to procedural items only. And no one knows what procedural means, including some of us umpires. I was surprised to realize that we don't know what it means either. So let's define it. Procedural items are items or issues that do not require the judgment of the umpire. Okay? Timeout for tack, timeout for injury, the score is wrong. Okay, those items do not require our judgment. They either the score is right or it's not. So you can say that, hey, the score's wrong. I'll check it immediately, the next dead ball. Okay. If it requires the judgment of the umpire, ball placement is not procedural because that requires our judgment. Okay? Whether a foul happened or didn't happen, or was it a foul or not, that requires the judgment of the umpire. No one may bring that up. Okay? No one may talk about ball placement. Sorry, those are judgment items and you're not to do that. With that being said, sometimes we will interact with the players a little bit. Sometimes on Pump 6 weekends, I'll just waive that rule altogether because I want to hear from the players so they know what I'm thinking so we can use it to teach. That's different, okay? And I'll say that right up front. Hey, y'all can talk to me if you want to, no problem, I'll answer you. Now, with that being said, don't abuse it, and players usually don't. Okay, so procedural only, and that's about it. Score, timeout, that's what you're pretty much limited to. Injured horse, that sort of thing, okay? Otherwise, you're risking a yellow card. I'm not saying you're going to get one, and I'm not saying your umpire is not going to interact with you. They're not supposed to. Oftentimes they will, just out of courtesy. If you're being polite, you'll get a lot of courtesy from your umpire. If you're being impolite, you're not going to get so much courtesy from your umpire. You're probably going to get a yellow card. So just remember that. But the rule says procedural only and only the captains. Okay? Remember that. Okay, leaving the field for no legitimate reason is an automatic red card, which means you're out for the game. You can be replaced after 2 minutes, and then you're out for the next game. What is this, right? This is a rule that was put into place because sponsors were leaving the field in protest of the umpire's decision to throw one of their players out. So if their player got, say, a second yellow and was set down, the sponsor would go and sit down with them to protest the umpires, which is the exact opposite of what they should do. Sponsors should be supporting the umpires because that's the proper thing to do. So that rule was put into place. So if that happens, you're automatically out and you're out for the next game. So don't do it. It's unsportsmanlike, and it's an incredibly rude thing to do. So don't do it. Okay. Now, what's a legitimate reason to leave the field? If you're tired, exhausted, or you need a drink, or you have an injury, something like that, if you're injured, you should tell your umpire immediately. But you need to get a mallet. You know, you're adjusting tack, but it's not the kind of tack that you can call a timeout for. Yes, those are all legitimate reasons to leave the field. But we just don't want you doing it because you're mad. That's the rule. If you're mad and you're going to have a temper tantrum and you leave the field, you're going to be automatically red carded. No questions asked. Okay, so basically it goes back to the original point I'm trying to make. Don't be a jerk. If you're a jerk, we don't like that. And the reason umpires can now give one yellow card. That's a penalty against your team. Second yellow card, penalty against your team, and you are out into the penalty box for 2 minutes. Third yellow card, penalty against your team, you're out into the penalty box again for 2 minutes. Except this also carries over to your next game for the same team. You will start that game with a yellow card. That next game should be of equal or higher handicap, and it doesn't count for substitutes. Substitutes are innocent bystanders in this yellow card game. Fourth yellow card does not exist. It's called a red card. If you get a red card, you are out for the rest of that game and the next game. But after 2 minutes, you can be substituted. Here's a quick note for you. Umpires can only give 2 yellows or a red card after a game, and that can carry over or will carry over to the next game on any team. So do not approach an umpire post-game. It is not going to go well for you. They are not allowed to just give 1 yellow card. They must give 2 yellows or a red. Keep that in mind. Another note for you to keep in mind is if you should happen to get a carryover yellow or red card, you cannot work off that card in a consolation game, a first round game in a subsidiary tournament, a shootout, or a club event. So that carryover card is going to sting a little. Just remember that. If you get put in the penalty box, you have to do your 2 minutes and then you can come back. Okay? If you leave early, in other words, you left at 1.5 minutes or 1:45 or whatever, you will be sent back to the penalty box to finish your time, and a penalty will be assessed against your team for you leaving early, and you'll get an additional 2 minutes. And you could get another yellow card if you don't leave innocently. In other words, if you're being a jerk and you leave, you're going to get another yellow. You might. Umpire discretion. So do not leave the penalty box early. It's not worth it. Do your time, come back and play polo. And that's the rule. If the game ends with you in the penalty box, in other words, you have time left on your sentence, so to speak, you will finish that sentence in the next game with the same team. So the USPA here really wants you to be a gentleman or a lady on the field. That's the point. But should you fail to do that because you can't, then you will spend some time in the penalty box, and it will carry over the next game, or possibly carry over the next game, and then eventually nobody will want to play with you. So think about it, and that's the rule. Okay, so before we end, I have to give you this quick disclaimer. The players in the background photos are all model polo players with regard to sportsmanship, and the photos are taken out of context. I actually know each one of them, and I love them very much. Platonically, of course. Thanks for watching.